It's nice to have your company as we take a look at tonight's federal budget. Ricky Lambert in our Flow News 24 team. Been a veteran in both the federal and state politics and seen many a budget to go by. And he joins us now. G'day, Ricky. How are you?
Great, thank you, Wayne.
It's a very interesting time for Australia post what some say the COVID virus, albeit that in India it's certainly not that. And we seem to be talking still a lot about it in terms of some of our citizens arriving home. But what do you expect in the context of the budget, given Craig Kelly, who was a Liberal Party backbencher but now is on the crossbench, has done a very interesting thing this morning in front of Parliament House?
Yes, the media spotlight on Canberra's got a few people pulling some stunts. We've got the Extinction Rebellion crowd trying to stop the cars even getting into Parliament in the first place to raise awareness about climate change. But then Craig Kelly's shown up with a pallet of trillion-dollar notes with Ned Kelly on the notes. And the point he's trying to make, and it's sort of one of those Dr. Evil moments, $1 trillion, is that is where our debt is heading to. And Craig Kelly is now a crossbencher. He's left the coalition over other issues. He is using his free speech to make the point with a big pallet of Ned Kelly trillion-dollar notes that this is the debt you and your children and grandchildren are going to have to pay off.
It's a very interesting one because there hasn't been a lot of discussion about the fact that the government has spent $300 billion to get us through the first part of the COVID-19 virus. So now we have a situation where the government's going to announce a budget where it looks like it's an election spending budget. What are some of the big ticket items that have already been released?
Well, what we know is that there's going to be $10 billion. These are eye-watering amounts of money. $10 billion on aged care, which is a response to the Royal Commission report on the terrible situation in aged care and trying to turn that around. Got $500 million being spent on mental health to try and improve that. And there's going to be a huge amount of measures spent on childcare and other incentives to really try and drive women out of the home and into the workforce.
I want to ask you about that because Matt Canavan, who is a Nationals and some believe the future leader of the Nationals and the Deputy Prime Minister potentially out of Queensland. He's on the backbench at the moment. And yesterday he tweeted out a very interesting image about, say, two families, one where two incomes are being earned and one where, say, a single income is being earned, where a stay-at-home mum may choose to stay at home with the children. And in his numbers, he actually points out that the two-income family actually pays less tax than the single income family. Now, surely the government will be looking to address that there is a circumstance where if somebody goes out to look after their family, they have a stay-at-home mum or stay-at-home dad even in the situation, that they would be paying less tax than, say, a double income family.
Yeah, during my time in Canberra, I did speak directly with Matt Canavan about this when he was previously a backbencher. He became a minister and then had to step out of the ministry again, I think because he supported Barnaby Joyce in a leadership spill, and he's been on the backbench ever since. Now, the point he's making is that if your family income, two families, a bit like the compare the pair superannuation ads, where they both earn the same amount of money, the two families, but one is earning it via two people working and one is earning it by one person working or one doing the bulk of the work, they are being punished in the tax system because the stay-at-home parent is not earning money. And all of these incentives, like childcare subsidies, etc., the government will throw even more at them in this budget. And the concern I have is that they won't adopt this income splitting policy that makes it fairer for those two families, which will ultimately mean that women are being punished for staying at home and looking after their kids. They wanted to appeal to women. They're going to miss that opportunity here.
And I think that's with a growing population in Australia, the situation is that most women actually do want to stay home and look after children and nurture a family. To say that every woman is just that excited to, after they've had a baby, just return straight back to work and that the whole system is designed around supporting me and so on, it seems to be to me that the government has an ideological shift on this issue.
I think it does, and it goes right back to when Tony Abbott was Prime Minister and he tried to appeal to women with the paid parental leave scheme, which I think the Coalition will now take on board fairly well as a policy through this budget or future budgets. They're desperately trying to appeal to women, but the trouble is they're listening to all the people in the Canberra bubble about this, talking about economists who believe that a good economy is a economy where both parents are working. Mm-hmm. And then you churn more money around through the tax system so that you're paying childcare workers to look after the children that the parents would have been looking after themselves if one of them stayed at home.
Yeah, very interesting point you make there. I'm going to ask you about, is there anything apart from infrastructure and more infrastructure for regional Australia? Is there something in it for housing? Or do you see that there may be some way that we can assist in regional towns and country areas to send populations back into our towns and at the same time provide housing, which apparently, if you look at what is happening with the Australian Regional Institute, they've listed that as one of the key components that needs to be addressed.
There are jobs in regional areas, as the government likes to say. Jobs. Plenty of jobs out there, but nowhere for people to live because there's the population has been growing, particularly in regional Victoria, but all of those workers can't find places to live, and that's knocking on a problem downwards into the lower income bracket where people who can't afford the rent are then either looking for social housing or ultimately they're homeless. And Jace Regan's spoken with Jason Clare, the Shadow Minister for Housing and Homelessness federally, and they've got an interview we'll put up on the podcast channel Flow News 24 soon. A very important interview about how we do need to create more housing in regional areas. We can't have people sleeping rough out in the country now as well as the city because there's not enough housing.
Very, very good point. And will the federal government address it? We'll find that out at 7:30 tonight. And tomorrow here on the Flow Morning Show and through Country Viewpoint, we'll have plenty of post-budget analysis. It's right here on Flow News 24 on our webpage, but also on the Flow Morning Show.